What up, pilots? Let's talk about the manual engine control and the trimming in an La-5. We are in the FN model, 4.0 in sim. Turn the engine on, turn manual engine control on, radiator, prop pitch. So this is a radial engine, just like a P47, so we can set it to starting at 20. If it starts to overheat a bit, we'll turn it down, but it's not going to overheat. It'll be fine. It's air cooled, so it should be fine. You can probably get away with closing it all the way, honestly, but I always say keep it at 20 and just leave it at 20 in most radials. Prop pitch, you're going to want it run at 90. Yeah, so La-5s don't have mixture. Okay, yeah. Yaks do, though. Alright. And that's it. That's the manual engine control. You can turn the prop pitch down for a little extra bite in your props, but I always just usually leave everything at 90. Some aircraft are kind of particular with the prop pitch, specifically Spitfires, by a percentage here and there. Alright, so there is supercharger gears, but we're going to be in gear 1 for now. Let's start rolling. About halfway. Correct with the rudder from the prop torque. About 30 knots. Throttle all the way up. Make sure that we're still on the airfield here. About 120, 130 knots. Slowly pull up. Gear up. Flaps up. Now we're going to start trimming for our climb. Then once we get to cruising speed at a decent altitude, then we'll trim it for cruising speed, and then we'll save it. So the La-5 is an energy fighter. It's just a pure energy fighter. I wouldn't try to energy fight a Spitfire though, and I wouldn't try to energy fight a Hurricane either if you come across one of those. I wouldn't try to run away from a 109, or I wouldn't try to run away from a Focke-Wulf or anything that's American, because it will outrun you, and it will outdive you too. It's a pure energy fighter, so don't try to run from a boom zoomer or a boom zoom energy fighter, and don't try to turn fight a turn fighter. So you want to stay energy fighting. So this does have supercharger gear. You want to start using supercharger gears in each aircraft. Supercharger gear 1, you want to stay in supercharger gear 1 from about takeoff to about, say, 8,000 to 9,000 feet, give or take. And then you can start using supercharger gear 2 at about 8,000 feet and up. If you have a supercharger gear 3, use supercharger gear 3 from about 15,000 on up. If you don't have a supercharger gear 3, just use supercharger gear 2 from about 8,000 feet and up. And then if you don't have supercharger gears at all, don't even worry about it. No turbo, so don't gotta worry about that. Alright, 8,000 feet. Supercharger gear 2. Let's trim out here for cruising speed. I think that's about as good as we're gonna get it. Save that. Alright, now that we saved it, you're not gonna have you're not gonna have rudder and aileron trim. You still will have elevator trim though in an LA in the match. But when after you've saved it in test flight and you go into an actual sim match, you will not be able to use rudder or aileron trim. Another thing that you don't want to do in most all Soviet aircraft is try to dive away from a high altitude. Don't try to run from an American aircraft. Not worth it. They're gonna catch you. Just try to energy fight it. So say Spitfire. You come across a Spitfire, you're going to want to energy trap it. Don't try turning with it too much because it will outturn you. You come across, I believe you're a little bit faster than a Spitfire in an LA. It's roughly about the same, but you can try to outrun it, but I would just try to outmaneuver it and energy trap it below you. If you come across an American aircraft, don't run. Okay, just energy fight it. Yeah, we've run out of rep. Well, ran out of WEP. The top left, our WEP ran out. Military power ran out. You will run out of WEP in an LA. Now let me show you something you don't want to do in a Soviet plane. Once we get to that altitude first. Yeah, so the LA is a pure energy fighter. It's got a decent speed, it's got a decent turn. However, don't run from a P-51 or a P-47 or P-63, and don't try to outturn a Spitfire or a Hurricane. Alright, that's good enough. So, we've gotten jumped by a P-51. Don't try to dive away from it and run. One, because they'll outrun you. And two, because you'll rip your wings when you compress. Boom. Alright. There you go. That's the LA-5. Or LA-7.